The flickering lights of Avalon Prime's lower levels cast strange shadows across Marcus Kane's weathered face as he nursed his third drink of the evening. The neutral trading station buzzed with activity even at this late hour. A constant hum of alien voices and mechanical sounds that never quite let a man rest. His left shoulder ached where the plasma bolt had grazed him 2 weeks ago. A reminder of his last job gone wrong. Marcus ran his fingers through his dark hair, streaked with premature silver at the temples. At 35, he felt much older, carrying the weight of a dozen campaigns across 3 star systems. The mercenary life had been good to him financially, but it had cost him everything else that mattered, eh? Soft, scuffling sound from the maintenance corridor behind him made his hand drift instinctively toward his sidearm. Years of combat had taught him to trust his instincts, and something about the noise felt wrong. Too deliberate. Too careful, hello. He called out quietly, rising from his seat at the dingy cantina table. Anyone there? Silence stretched for several heartbeats before a small voice whispered back, "Please do not hurt us, human sir." Marcus's eyebrows rose in surprise. The voice belonged to a child, speaking perfect Galactic standard, with a lilting accent he couldn't quite place. He approached the maintenance hatch slowly, hands visible and empty. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said gently. "Are you okay in there?" The hatch creaked open slightly, revealing 3 pairs of large, luminous eyes peering out from the darkness. The children were clearly not human, their skin holding a subtle iridescent quality that shifted between blue and silver in the dim light. Their hair fell in soft waves, almost white but with hints of starlight. "We are lost," said the eldest, a girl who couldn't have been more than 12 standard years. "Our transport was attacked. We hid in the emergency pods and ended up here." Marcus crouched down to their level. Noting the fine quality of their clothing despite the dirt and tears from their ordeal, these weren't ordinary refugee children. "What are your names?" he asked. The eldest straightened with unconscious dignity. "I am Nea. These are my brothers, Kale and Ari." The middle child, Kale, pressed closer to his sister while the youngest, Ari, regarded Marcus with curious eyes. "I'm Marcus. Marcus Kane." He studied their faces, seeing something familiar in their features. "You're Zephyrian, aren't you?" Naya's eyes widened slightly before she nodded. "You know our people? I've had dealings in the outer systems." Marcus kept his voice neutral. The Zephyrians were known for their advanced technology and fierce independence. They rarely ventured into neutral space. "What kind of transport were you on?" "A diplomatic vessel," Naya said carefully. "We were traveling with our guardian when pirates attacked. She told us to hide and promised to find us. But ... double quotes, her voice trailed off. Marcus felt something twist in his chest at the pain in her young voice. He'd seen too many orphans created by the endless conflicts that plagued the galaxy. "How long have you been hiding here?" 2 days, Kale spoke for the first time, his voice barely above a whisper. "We're very hungry." Without hesitation, Marcus stood and extended his hand toward them. "Come on then. Let's get you fed and somewhere safe to rest." Naya hesitated, studying his face with startling intensity for someone so young. "Why would you help us?" "You do not know who we are. You're children who need help?" Marcus said simply. "That's all I need to know." Something in his tone must have convinced her, because she took his hand and helped her brothers out of their hiding place. As they emerged into the light, Marcus got his first good look at them. Despite their ordeal, they carried themselves with unmistakable grace and confidence. He led them through the quieter service corridors toward his temporary quarters. Noting how Kale stayed close to his sister while Auri seemed fascinated by everything around them. The boy's resilience reminded Marcus of himself at that age, before the galaxy had taught him harder lessons. "Marcus," Naya said as they walked, "there is something you should know about us." He looked down at her serious expression. "What's that?" She took a deep breath, as if bracing herself for his reaction. "Our mother is Queen Seraphina of the Zephyrian realms. We are the royal heirs." Marcus stopped walking, the implications hitting him immediately. Royal children. Missing heirs. This changed everything. "Well," he said after a moment, surprising himself with his calm reaction, I suppose that explains the fancy clothes. Ari giggled softly at that, the first smile Marcus had seen from any of them. Naya looked relieved that he wasn't turning them away. "Are you going to turn us in for the reward?" she asked quietly. Marcus looked at her for a long moment, seeing not a princess, but a scared child trying to protect her younger brothers. Something deep inside him, something he'd thought long dead, stirred to life. "No," he said firmly. "I'm going to keep you safe until we can get you home to your mother." Marcus's quarters were spartanly furnished but clean, a single room with basic amenities that reflected his transient lifestyle. He watched the three Zephyrian children take in their surroundings, noting how they instinctively moved closer together. The sight tugged at something in his chest he'd forgotten existed. "It's not much," he said, pulling spare blankets from a storage compartment, "but it's secure and off the main grid." Naya nodded graciously. "It is perfect. We are grateful for your kindness." Her formal manner reminded him uncomfortably that these weren't ordinary children. They were royalty, probably accustomed to luxury beyond his imagination. Yet they'd been hiding in maintenance shafts, eating whatever scraps they could find. Marcus heated ration packs in the small food processor, grimacing at the unappetizing smell. "Sorry, it's not exactly royal cuisine. We have not eaten in over a day," Cale said quietly, accepting the warm container with both hands. "This smells wonderful." The simple gratitude in the boy's voice made Marcus's throat tight. He'd grown up hungry on the colony worlds, knew the gnawing desperation of an empty stomach. No child should have to experience that, especially not these gentle creatures, while they ate. Marcus activated his communication array and began scanning for any news about missing Zephyrian royals. What he found made his blood run cold. The children's disappearance had sparked a massive search operation involving multiple star systems. Worse, there were rumors of substantial bounties being offered by various factions, Marcus. Naya approached him at the station, having noticed his tense posture. "What is it?" He turned to shield the screen from her view. "Nothing you need to worry about." Just checking station traffic. But Naya was too intelligent to be fooled. She'd already seen enough of the display to understand. "They're looking for us. Your mother is worried about you," Marcus said carefully. "That's natural. It's not just mother, is it?" Naya's eyes held a wisdom that seemed far too mature for her 12 years. "There are others who would use us." Marcus sighed, knowing he couldn't lie to her. "There might be some people who see political advantage in your situation, but that's not going to happen while you're under my protection." Auri had curled up on the narrow bed, exhausted from their ordeal. Cale sat beside him, gently stroking his younger brother's hair. The tender gesture reminded Marcus of his own childhood, how he'd comforted his younger sister during their father's violent rages. "May I ask you something?" Naya said, settling cross-legged on the floor beside Marcus's chair. "Of course. Why are you helping us?" "Truly. You could collect a substantial reward just by turning us over to station security." Marcus studied her earnest face, seeing echoes of her mother's regal bearing even in such humble surroundings. "I had a sister once, younger than you. When bad things happened, I couldn't protect her." "What happened to her?" "She died when I was 16. Pirates attacked our colony. I was off-world with a trading crew, thought I was so grown up." His voice grew rough with old pain. "When I got back, there was nothing left." Naya reached out and placed her small hand over his scarred knuckles. "I am sorry. I swore that day that I'd never again fail to protect someone who needed help." Marcus looked at the three children who'd somehow found their way into his life. "Especially kids who remind me of her." Cale had been listening quietly from the bed. "What was her name? Elena?" "She would have been about your age now, Ari. She would be proud of you," Naya said, with surprising certainty. "Helping us honors her memory." Marcus felt something warm unfurl in his chest at her words. When had anyone last spoken to him with such gentle understanding? His life had been filled with commanding officers, clients, and enemies. Genuine compassion was a rare commodity in his world. A soft chime from his communication array interrupted the moment. Marcus frowned at the priority signal flashing on his screen. "What is it?" Naya asked, noting his changed expression. Marcus activated the secure channel. And suddenly, the room filled with a holographic projection that made all three children gasp in recognition. Queen Seraphina of the Zephyrian realms materialized before them. Her beauty even more striking in person than in the official portraits Marcus had seen. She was tall and ethereal, with the same iridescent skin as her children, but marked by the wisdom and strength of maturity. Her silver-white hair was elaborately braided with threads of starlight, and her eyes held depths that spoke of both incredible compassion and terrible power. "My children," she breathed, her voice breaking with relief and joy. "Mother." All three rushed toward the projection, trying to embrace an image that couldn't hold them back. Queen Seraphine's gaze found Marcus over her children's heads, and he felt the full weight of her attention like a physical force. "You are the human who has protected my heirs." "Yes, Your Majesty." Marcus stood and offered a respectful bow. "Captain Marcus Kane." "They appear unharmed." "I am in your debt, Captain Kane." "No debt necessary, Your Majesty." Anyone would have done the same. Seraphine's eyes narrowed slightly, studying him with an intensity that made him feel exposed. Would they? I think not. The tranquil moment shattered when Marcus's proximity alarms began shrieking. Red warning lights bathed his quarters in urgent crimson as the automated voice announced, "Security sweep in progress. All residents remain in quarters for inspection." "They found us," Marcus said grimly, already moving to gather supplies. "We need to move now." Queen Seraphine's hologram flickered with static interference. "Marcus, I'm 2 hours out from your position. Can you keep them safe until I arrive?" "Count on it," he replied, slinging his weapon harness across his shoulders. "Your Majesty, this channel might be compromised." "We're going dark, Mother." Naya reached toward the fading projection. "Be brave, my starlight." Seraphine's voice came through the static. "Trust, Captain Kane. I will find you." The hologram vanished just as heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Marcus pressed his finger to his lips and motioned the children toward the emergency access panel he'd noted when first renting the quarters. Always have an exit strategy had kept him alive this long. "Stay close and stay quiet," he whispered, helping Ori through the narrow opening first. "Kale, keep your brother's hand." "Naya, you're with me." They crawled through the maintenance tunnels as the sound of forced entry echoed behind them. Marcus's heart pounded as he realized how much these 3 young lives had come to mean to him in just 2 days. The thought of failing them like he'd failed Alina made his hands shake. "Where are we going?" Naya whispered as they navigated a junction of ventilation shafts. "Observation Deck 7. It's been abandoned since the nebula storms started interfering with the sensors." Marcus paused to check his scanner. "Should buy us time until your mother arrives." They emerged into a vast chamber with transparent, aluminum walls, offering a breathtaking view of the Rainbow Nebula surrounding Avalon Prime. Stellar gases swirled in impossible colors, while distant stars twinkled like scattered diamonds. Under other circumstances, it would have been magnificent. Eerie pressed his small hands against the transparent wall, eyes wide with wonder. "It's beautiful." "Yes, it is," Marcus agreed, setting up a portable barrier near the entrance. "But right now we need to focus on staying hidden." Kale had been unusually quiet since they'd started running. Now he approached Marcus with hesitant steps. "Are you scared?" The simple question caught Marcus off guard. Children had a way of cutting through pretense to the heart of things. "A little," he admitted, "but being scared isn't always bad. It keeps you sharp." "Father used to say fear was wisdom recognizing danger," Naya added, settling beside her younger brother. "Your father sounds like he was a smart man. He died when Ori was born," she said matter-of-factly. "Mother says he would have loved us very much." Marcus felt that familiar twist in his chest. These children had already lost so much, and now they were running for their lives because of politics and power they were too young to understand. "Marcus." Naya's voice was softer now, almost shy. "May I see your wound?" He looked down to where fresh blood was seeping through his shirt. The exertion of their escape had reopened the plasma burn on his shoulder. "It's nothing. Serious, please." She moved closer with the fluid grace that seemed natural to her people. Mother taught me basic field medicine. Reluctantly, Marcus stripped off his shirt and tactical vest. Naya's eyes widened at the collection of scars across his chest and back. Each one a story of violence survived. You have been hurt many times, she observed, gently examining the fresh wound with surprising skill for someone so young. Occupational hazard, Marcus said. Trying to keep his tone light, Naia cleaned the wound with supplies from his field kit, her touch gentle but confident. Why do you do this work if it brings you so much pain? The question hung in the air between them as she applied a healing patch to his shoulder. Marcus found himself really thinking about it for the first time in years. I used to think it was because I was good at it, he said slowly. But lately, I wonder if it's because I don't know how to do anything else. Mother says we all have choices, Cale offered quietly, even when it doesn't feel like it. Your mother sounds very wise. She is, all three children said in unison. Making Marcus smile despite their situation, Ori had been watching the nebula swirling. Patterns when he suddenly pressed closer to the transparent wall. Marcus, there are ships out there. Marcus joined him at the observation point, his blood chilling at what he saw. 3 unmarked vessels were approaching Avalon Prime in an attack formation. He recognized all too well. Pirates, he breathed. They're not here for the bounty. They're here to take you by force. Naya appeared at his shoulder, her face pale but composed. What do we do? Marcus checked his weapons and remaining ammunition. Not enough for a prolonged fight, especially while protecting 3 children. But he'd held impossible odds before. We wait for your mother and we keep you safe, he said with more confidence than he felt. Whatever it takes, as if responding to his words. Cale moved to stand on Marcus's other side while Ori pressed closer to his back. They were scared, but they trusted him. The weight of that trust felt heavier than any weapon he'd ever carried, through the transparent aluminum. The pirate ships grew larger against the backdrop of swirling stellar gases. Somewhere in the darkness beyond, Queen Seraphina was racing toward them. Marcus just hoped she'd arrive in time. The children pressed closer to him as distant explosions lit up the space around the station. The hunt had become a siege. Marcus found himself the only thing standing between 3 innocent young lives and the vast darkness that wanted to swallow them. The station shuddered under weapons fire as Marcus positioned himself between the children and the observation deck's main entrance. Distant explosions painted the nebula in brief, violent colors that reflected off the transparent walls around them. Marcus. Naya's voice was steady despite the chaos. If something happens to you, what should we do? Before he could answer, a new sound cut through the rumble of battle. The distinctive harmonic thrum of Zephyrian royal engines, more felt than heard, seemed to resonate in their very bones. Mother Ari whispered. Pressing his face to the transparent wall, a sleek vessel materialized from the nebula's swirling gases, its hull gleaming with the same iridescent quality as Zephyrian skin. Royal Guard fighters swarmed around it like protective dancers, engaging the pirate ships with elegant precision that was as beautiful as it was deadly. She came, Cale breathed. Wonder filling his voice, Marcus watched the battle unfold, professional admiration mixing with relief. The Zephyrian ships moved like living things, their tactics flowing and adaptive rather than rigid. Within minutes, the pirate vessels were retreating or burning hulks drifting in the nebula's embrace. Footsteps in the corridor outside made Marcus raise his weapon, but the harmonic frequency that preceded them marked them as Zephyrian. The blast door dilated to reveal Queen Seraphina herself. Flanked by 4 royal guards in armor that seemed carved from starlight, seeing her in person took Marcus's breath away. The hologram hadn't captured the full majesty of her presence, the way she seemed to command space itself simply by existing within it. Her eyes found her children first, relief and joy, transforming her regal features into something achingly beautiful. My starlings, she said. And suddenly she wasn't a queen, but simply a mother who'd nearly lost everything precious to her. The children rushed to her, and Marcus watched as Seraphina gathered them against her with fierce tenderness. Her eyes closed as she held them, breathing in their scent as if memorizing it. When she looked up and met Marcus's gaze over their heads, He saw tears tracking down her luminous cheeks. "Captain Kane?" She approached him slowly, the children still clinging to her elaborate robes. "Words cannot express my gratitude. They're incredible kids, Your Majesty. They were brave through everything." "He protected us, Mother," Naya said, looking up at Serafina with shining eyes. "Even when he was hurt. Even when the bad men came." Seraphine's gaze dropped to the fresh bandage on Marcus's shoulder, then traveled across the scars visible through his torn shirt. Something shifted in her expression, a recognition that seemed to go beyond mere gratitude. "You've carried many battles," she observed quietly. "Part of the job," Marcus replied, but found himself unable to look away from her face. "And what job is that exactly?" Serafina asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. "My intelligence reports suggest you're more than a simple mercenary." Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. "Former Terran Marine. Did my 20 years? Now I take contracts that interest me? And what interested you about protecting 3 frightened children with no promise of reward?" The question hung between them like a challenge. Marcus was aware of her guards watching him, of the children listening intently, of the vast nebula swirling beyond the transparent walls. But mostly, he was aware of Seraphine's eyes, deep and intelligent, and somehow seeing more than he was comfortable revealing. "They reminded me of someone I failed to protect once," he said honestly. "I couldn't live with failing again." Serafina stepped closer, studying his face with the same intensity her eldest daughter had shown. "And now? Will you simply disappear back into whatever shadows you emerged from?" "That was the plan," Marcus admitted. "Get them safe, collect my gear, find the next job." Marcus Ori spoke up in his small, clear voice. "Do you have to go?" The simple question hit him like a physical blow. Marcus looked down at the youngest prince, seeing trust and affection that he hadn't realized he'd earned. Kale moved to stand beside his brother, while Naya watched him with those 2 wise eyes. "I don't have anywhere else to be," Marcus said slowly. The admission surprising him, Seraphine's guards exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation, but their queen seemed focused entirely on Marcus, as if the rest of the universe had faded away. "What if I offered you somewhere to be?" she asked quietly. "My children have been through trauma. They'll need time to heal, to feel safe again. They trust you in a way that's rare for Zephyrians, especially toward humans. Your Majesty, I'm not qualified to be around royal children. I'm a soldier, not a diplomat or teacher. No." Serafina agreed, moving close enough that he caught the subtle scent of starflowers that seemed to cling to her skin. "You're something more valuable. You're someone who puts their safety above everything else, including your own life." She reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away, and touched the fresh bandage on his shoulder with fingertips that seemed to glow with inner light. "Stay," she said simply. "Help me keep them safe while they heal. Help me understand the human perspective as our peoples learn to trust each other." Again, Marcus looked at the children clustered around their mother, at the hope in their faces, at the vast beauty of the nebula beyond. For the first time in years, he could imagine a life that wasn't defined by violence and solitude. "And what happens when they don't need protection anymore?" he asked. Seraphine's smile transformed her face, revealing warmth that had nothing to do with her royal bearing and everything to do with the woman beneath the crown. "Then perhaps we'll find other reasons for you to stay," she said, her voice soft enough that only he could hear. Marcus felt something shift deep in his chest, like a door he'd kept locked for years finally creaking open. "Your Majesty, are you sure about this?" "Call me Serafina," she said, her hand still resting gently on his wounded shoulder. "And yes, I'm very sure." 3 months later, Marcus stood on the Royal Gardens observation terrace, watching Aerie and Kale chase luminescent butterflies through the floating flower beds. The sight never failed to amaze him. How quickly children could heal when surrounded by love and safety. "They look happy." Seraphine's voice came from behind him. Warm with contentment, Marcus turned to find her approaching with 2 cups of the spiced tea he'd grown fond of during his time on Zephyros Prime. She'd abandoned her formal crown for a simple circlet that caught the binary sunset's light, and her flowing robes had been replaced with a more practical, tunic that didn't diminish her beauty one bit. "They are happy," he agreed, accepting the tea gratefully. "It's good to see them being children again. And what about their protector?" Serafina moved to stand beside him at the railing, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "Is he happy?" Marcus considered the question seriously. Happiness wasn't something he'd thought much about in his former life. Survival, mission completion, the next job, those had been his concerns. But watching the children flourish under his protection, seeing their trust and affection grow, had awakened something in him he'd thought long dead. "Getting there," he said. Honestly, Naye emerged from the garden, maze below, her arms full of star blossoms that would illuminate the dinner table tonight. At 14 now, she was growing into her mother's grace and intelligence. But she still sought Marcus out for advice about everything from defensive tactics to the mysteries of adolescence. "Marcus," she called up to the terrace, "Ori wants to know if you'll teach him that hand-to-hand combat move you showed Kale yesterday, the one where he accidentally threw me into the fountain." Marcus called back, making Serafina laugh beside him. "That one exactly." Naya confirmed with a grin that was pure mischief. "Tell him after dinner," Marcus replied, "and remind him that fountains are not valid tactical obstacles." Seraphine's laughter was like music, warm and genuine in a way that still caught him off guard. "You realize they're going to be the most martially competent royals in Zephyrian history?" "Better prepared than helpless," Marcus said, his tone growing serious. "The galaxy's a dangerous place, especially for people in their position." "Yes," Serafina agreed, her hand finding his on the railing. "But they'll never face it alone. They have you now." The simple statement made Marcus's chest tight with emotions he was still learning to handle. The family wasn't something he'd planned for, but somehow this strange collection of beings had become exactly that. "Serafina," he began, then stopped, struggling with words that felt too important to get wrong. "What is it?" she asked gently, turning to face him fully. Marcus looked into her eyes, seeing patience and understanding, and something deeper that made his heart race. "When you first asked me to stay, it was for the children." "Yes, and now?" he asked, his voice rough with hope and uncertainty. Serafina stepped closer, her free hand rising to trace the line of his jaw with fingers that glowed softly in the fading light. "Now it's for me as well." "Is that acceptable, Captain Kane?" Instead of answering with words, Marcus leaned down and kissed her, tasting starflowers and promises, in the beginning of something that felt like forever. She melted against him with a soft sound of contentment, her arms wrapping around his neck as the binary suns painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson. "They're doing the mushy thing again," Ari's voice drifted up from the garden, followed by Kale's amused laughter. They broke apart, both smiling, to find all three children watching them, with expressions ranging from delighted approval to theatrical disgust. "You know," Naya said thoughtfully, "if you two get married, that would make Marcus officially our stepfather." "I thought he already was," Kale added matter-of-factly. "He does all the stepfather things." "Like what?" Serafina asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. "He worries about us constantly," Ori listed on his fingers. "He teaches us useful skills our tutors won't. He makes terrible jokes at dinner. He threatens anyone who might hurt us. And he loves Mother," Naya added, with the devastating directness of youth. "Anyone can see it." Marcus felt his face burn with embarrassment, but Serafina just laughed and pulled him closer. "Out of the mouths of babes," she murmured against his ear. "So what do you say?" Kale called up to them. "Are we going to make this official, or what?" "What indeed?" Serafina said, looking up at Marcus with eyes full of starlight and possibilities. Marcus looked at this woman who'd become his anchor, at the children who'd become his purpose, at the beautiful world that had become his home. The scared mercenary who'd stumbled across 3 lost children seemed like someone from another lifetime. "I love you," he said simply, the words carrying the weight of complete surrender. "All of you. If you'll have me, not just as a protector, but as family." "Always," Serafina whispered, standing on her toes to kiss him again as their children cheered below, and the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky. In the distance, Avalon Prime was just a glimmer among the nebula's swirling gases, but Marcus no longer looked toward the horizon with restless eyes. He'd found something worth staying for, something worth protecting with his life and his heart. The lost had found their way home at last.